A lot of my friends think this is funny because I used to actually hate Muslims. And I was known as the Muslim hater because I just was really affected by the media, and I was very much into reading like magazines like Marie Claire and you know, Elle magazine, and they always had an article about some poor Muslim woman who'd been beaten up by their husbands in, you know, Pakistan or wherever.
On one hand, the media is telling me, you know, like showing us pictures of women being oppressed, people being violent and wars and stuff.
It's the mainstream media's sort of perception.
Absolutely negative. Obviously, you have the media stance. You have the cultural stance from my parents.
I used to live in New Zealand, and there weren't many Muslims in New Zealand when I lived there. And I think as a result of that, the media was certainly nothing like we have here in Britain in terms of the anti-Islam feeling.
I had a lot of bigoted ideas and conceptions which were totally alien to Islam.
But what I found out was from all these sources that emanated this negativity towards Islam, they had no appropriate basis.
And I think that was definitely an advantage, because when I started to study Islam, there was no preconceived ideas that I had.
I used to look at all the problems in the world, and every time I switched on the TV there was, you know, a bombing.
The basis was usually an egotistical one.
All the fighting in the world there was Muslims involved.
A hidden agenda one, in terms of like, they agree with something now, let me support you further by rejecting other things.
So I was like associated violence and fighting and corruption all with Islam.
Then on the other hand, I used to see the people at university, and I used to find that they were doing a lot of stuff that, you know, Islam didn't permit. But I used to think that, well, that was because Islam's too harsh, that, you know, it couldn't like deal with people's problems and stuff like this.
I hadn't been approached for a majority of my life about Islam, so I didn't know anything about it.
Something very non-liberal, and Muslims very arrogant, because they thought their religion is the best religion, and they were not willing to take from any other religion.
I had my life, they had theirs.
What I saw was that people were living split personalities, doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, and then going home and then being another person, you know, for their parents, basically.
It didn't relate to me, so therefore it was not worth taking any notice of.
My dad's family, a lot of them live in Iran, so seeing them, I didn't have a very good view of Islam at all.
It was a religion that Asian people followed, and it was something which was very strict on girls.
That's really the only view I had of it, that it was really restrictive, and all it wanted to do was stop you having fun and stop you going out. So I didn't have a very good view of Islam at all.
From the other perspective, I think now that Islam is so much in the media, it's a case that people are, you know, rejecting a very biased opinion, and they actually want to go and see what Islam's all about. So there is a almost like a backlash in the sense that against this negative media, and they want to understand Islam and actually see what it has to offer.
The Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the age of 40 in the Arabian city of Mecca in the year 610 AD. This was to be a path, a way of life, distinct from all other ways of life. Islam called upon the people of Arabia, who were in the depth of misguidance, backwardness with widespread depraved practices, to believe in the oneness of Allah and the messengership of Muhammad, peace be upon him. To believe that there is a life in the hereafter, and hence to commit one's affairs to Allah. The progress that Islam brought to Arabia was phenomenal. Pre-Islamic Arabia had primitive tribal practices that kept people constantly at war and divided. They held no value for human life, whether it was men, women or children. However, Islam brought about a complete transformation in society, reformed the people and made them into one brotherhood to the point that it eliminated tribal warfare and other forces of divisiveness. This short documentary will attempt to shed some light on why Islam appeals to people of diverse backgrounds. The interviews in the documentary will reveal why people embraced Islam.
I think before I embraced Islam, my viewpoint was like most of the other people in the West.
You know, basically have fun in life.
Which was, you know, get ahead.
Having some kind of status in this life.
Enjoy myself.
Get a good degree.
Have a good career.
Get a good job.
Getting a bit further up the career ladder than my parents.
Make lots of money.
Go to parties and have fun, and meet people and have fun, and go out and have fun. But you find most of the time when you do that, you're just miserable at the end of the night anyway.
And, you know, look after yourself or look after number one.
In terms of belief, I didn't really believe in anything. I didn't have any religion that I followed. My dad's Shia Muslim, but he doesn't practice, and my mum is from Scotland. She doesn't practice. She's Christian, but she doesn't practice either.
My life was a bit messed up, yeah. Talking about my life, like, for the first 2 years of my life, I lived with my mum and my dad, and my dad left my mum when I was 2 years old.
It's not as easy just to say, oh, I want a happy life, because life throws tests at you all the time.
My dad left my mum because he's gay.
But when I came across Islam, I've realised that, you know, there's a lot more to life than that.
Now that was harsh on my mum, you know what I mean? And for me, I was a kid, obviously I didn't know what was happening.
I was just looking for the most entertainment I could find. You know, you're young, you know, you want anything to do with hype, anything to do with entertainment, anything to do with excitement.
My dad got HIV, and then basically my mum kept on telling me and my sister, like, preparing us that our dad was going to die.
I actually, in fact, went to New York looking for it, and it was just a surprise that I came across something totally different.
And when I got to 15, I found out that my mum had cancer.
When I adopted the concept of Islam, I understood that this myth called freedom did not exist, because we were affected by the social construct of society and the social construct of the influentials. Now, in essence, also the concept of freedom was like, how do I know the implications of my actions on the rest of humanity?
Within 6 months or something, she passed away. So, because of these things that happened to me at a young age, it kind of set the view I had on life.
And that's why when I did adopt the basis of Islam, that concept had to go. Because now it wasn't freedom, it was the pleasure of my Creator.
I was an innocent kid before, hidden, kept away from all the bad things, because my mum brought me up quite well in that respect, yeah? But then when my mum passed away, I thought, F everything. I forgot everything, I didn't care about anything. Things went downhill for me. I left school at 15. You know, I started blazing every day, drinking alcohol. Yeah, I was in depression for 4 years. I would wake up in a prison cell the next morning. I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a t-shirt on me. You know, I had scratches all over me, and the police officers telling me I just been fighting some geezer.
For me, it was more of like, is this the truth? And that's the thing that actually gave me true tranquility. And especially when I became Muslim, the things that emanated from Islam in terms of its concepts, those were the things that gave me tranquility. For example, I did not see good or bad as dualities anymore. I saw them as, am I pleasing my Creator, yes or no, in this situation? And the pleasure of my Creator was the thing that was giving me tranquility.
One time I was younger, I was about 8 years old, yeah? And I was thinking about death. I was thinking, what's life about?
One thing which was missing, there was a certain emptiness in my life. An emptiness because I didn't know what life is all about. Why am I here? What's going to happen to me, after I die?
And I remember that night, I asked my mum and she couldn't answer me and I cried. I was so scared, I couldn't sleep all night. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't think, what is the purpose of this life? When I came to Islam, these questions were answered. That question I had when I was 8 years old, that was answered.
Once I adopted the basis of Islam, and once I understood that Islam was the correct basis to have, then my whole psychological disposition changed. I'm not going to sit there and meditate and just have an altered state of consciousness, because that's fruitless. What I'm going to do is cognitively change my disposition in order to please my Creator.
By the year 623 AD, Islam was established as a state in the Arabian city of Medina, and this state had a constitution that was designed to organize the affairs of different peoples. Within 10 years of that state, the people of the Arabian Peninsula embraced Islam, and the Islamic way of life became dominant. In fact, Islam eventually appealed to millions globally, and it still continues to do so. Over the centuries, it spread to most parts of Africa, the Middle East, India, the Far East, Central Asia, China, the Caucasus, the Balkans, and Spain. Most of these areas were under the vast Islamic Caliphate state that spanned over 1,000 years. At present, there are an estimated 1.5 to 2 billion Muslims globally, including tens of millions in Europe and North America. Despite the absence of the Islamic Caliphate state, it is the fastest growing way of life here in Britain as well as throughout the West. Once implemented in society, Islam achieved prosperity through trade, and scientific discoveries were made in the many fields such as science, architecture, mathematics, astronomy and medicine. It is obviously beyond the scope of this short documentary to discuss these discoveries in great details. However, these facts are well documented even by Western academics.
When I was a Christian, I had certain doubts and questions in my mind. And one of those was the role of prophets. How was it that Isa, or Jesus, alayhi salam, was put in such an esteemed position, given a position even beyond his role, whereas the other prophets, they didn't seem to fit into the picture, and so that troubled me.
It challenged my mind. It made me think.
Initially, I came from a background of a family that were what would you call thinkers.
And it wasn't really until I studied Islam that I could understand that all of the prophets and messengers had a particular calling, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the last, as the seal of the prophets, was really confirming what had come before and completing the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that really completed the picture for me.
My dad always used to read many books on psychology, philosophy, etc. And obviously coming from a Greek background, it would be quite stereotypical to say that we were thinkers.
The most important question was, how do I know that this creed is the truth? How do I know that this book, the Quran, is from the Creator? How do I know that there is a Creator? All of these questions that I posed to another Muslim, he was able to answer it.
So in essence, when you look at the whole universe and you look at all matter around you, I noticed that something was similar.
All other beliefs, creeds, religions, they ask their followers to follow blindly, not to question. They're unable to give evidence which satisfies a thinking person.
Everything was finite and dependent. And I was looking at everything, even the universe. The sun was celestial bodies, they were finite, independent.
Christianity would have been an easier step for me because my background was Christianity. I used to go Sunday school. I knew about that. But Islam, what attracted me to Islam, and which is superior in my belief, is that here it's calling me to the worship of the Creator. It's calling me to the worship of the Creator and not the created.
What this meant to me was, what are they dependent on? If they're finite, therefore they cannot exist on their own. They need to rely on something else for existence.
Previously, my parents, they were Buddhist, so I was brought up in not a very strict Buddhist environment. But then, like, I did have questions about life, like, I used to think, like, is there a God or isn't there? But this is something that isn't really, like, covered in Buddhism. They believe in reincarnation. So these are things I didn't have answers for.
So from a rational point of view, there is no other explanation but to say there is a creator. Now, I also had another family influence from the scientific angle that, science disproves the creator.
When I started, like, having these questions, I used to push them out of my mind. And I said, well, you never get these answers. It would be a miracle if I did, yeah? And then what happened was that I got to a point where I looked into Buddhism a bit deeper, and I found that I still had so many questions, and a lot of things just seemed like myths and fairy tales to me. It didn't have any hard evidence. So I thought, like, with this thing, what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me when I die? I thought, I'm just going to look into loads of different religions. And what happened, I just thought I'll look into Islam as well. And surprisingly, it really shocked me. I found that, Islam had the answers to these questions that I'd just, dismissed for so long.
But then I said to myself, fine, we have to understand what is science. It's a method of study. Scientists, they'll look at gravity, and they wouldn't care why it's there. They want to see how it affects their relationship with the other bodies in the universe.
And I took the understanding that I'm not going to attach myself to any belief because I can't tell that they're true. I'm just a believer in God.
The best thought to use, or the one that transcends anything else, is not the scientific thought. Because from the argument it's like, no one can see my brain. My brain cannot be smelt, touched, etc. So from the scientific point of view, people could say, I don't have no brain at the moment. So it's quite humorous. But the situation is, the scientific method is finite in itself. So therefore it cannot be applied to something that's intangible. Only rational thought can do that.
That changed when my friends directed me to Islam and said, actually, Islam does provide you with the proof. And I was a bit baffled. I was like, no, there's no such thing, yeah? Because if there was a proof, then everybody would be that religion. Islam has a proof, because every human being needs a proof to believe in something. You can't just say something's true without proving it. You can't say, oh, Christianity's true, Hinduism's true, Judaism's true, without showing people why.
So fine, now we have a creator. We understand this. There's a knocking on the door. Bang, bang.
Because I even went to the lengths of phoning a temple and saying, why is Hinduism true? Because I was so confused. And they didn't give me any solid answers. None of the other faiths could show me, apart from Islam.
I cannot assume what is behind the door. Speculation cannot work. Itself, the thing behind the door, must tell us who or what it is. So here we go to find out the expression of the Creator. Where is it? What is it?
It's not that, I thought praying every day, 5 times a day to your God is amazing, is the best thing. That's what attracted me.
So I got to the things that were the current status quo, if you like, on what the expression is. The Bible, the Buddhist scripts, etc. So I did quite a bit of an analysis on them. And I said to myself, fine, Buddhism is amazing, it's so nice, etc. But then I came to another thought. Is it the fruits? What does the fruits mean? So I was lucky enough to read some books on social constructionism.
Obviously, once I entered the folds of Islam, I saw the beauty of Islam. I saw the justice of Islam. Like the past, when I had friends, I didn't know the meaning of the word friends, and nor did they.
Now, what does social constructionism mean? It means basically that all our behaviors and our thoughts and our psychological disposition is dictated by the power structure and the influentials in society. So MTV wouldn't show what they're showing now 20 years ago, for example, or 10 years ago.
Islam tells you the most simple thing, what is friendship, yeah? How you do things for people, yeah, sincerely, not for your own benefit, yeah, not even because you want to make them happy, and then they in return they're going to do something for you.
So I said to myself, fine, I cannot judge things by the fruits, because my psychological disposition can change, but truth doesn't change. So I said, forget the fruits. Let's see the basis. Is this from the Creator in itself? I came to the Quran.
When I saw Islam, I saw the truth.
It was the only expression that lacked contradiction, that had no disparity, that had solutions for mankind, that had this miraculous nature, which a lot of Muslims call the linguistic miracle, in terms of there's 16 styles of Arabic literature in terms of poetry and prose, and the Quran cannot fit into those 16 styles. It's a unique style in itself, and no other poetry or prose, pre-Islam or post-Islam, fits into that structure.
When I saw the truth, I could reject the truth or accept it.
And that's so amazing. I mean, we have the grammar, the letters, and the structure of Arabic, but we can't put it together in order to create even 3 lines of the Quran, which to me it's blew my mind away, and I was so amazed.
Whether there were parts of Islam that attracted me or I didn't like. For example, waking up every single day of my life till when I die, before sunrise, that does not attract me to Islam, yeah? And if someone said that to me, I'd be thinking, nah, man. Do you know what I mean? Before I became a Muslim.
And not more. What I saw with the Quran is that it agreed with reality, with the correct sensation of reality. For example, when we come to science, there's a lot of scientific ayahs, verses in the Quran that I agree with current reality, whereas we just found this 50 years ago, but the Quran was expressed 1500 years ago.
I accepted it because it's the truth, but once you accept it and you see the true Islam, you think, this is amazing, because it's from God. I have not given up cannabis, I haven't given up alcohol, I haven't, stopped fighting and stopped socializing with women and wake up I don't do all of these things because I'm believing in something which might not be true. Yeah? I do all of these things and I will do them till I die because I know 100% without doubt it is not a theory, it is a fact that Islam is the truth and it can be proven.
So from that, I said I have to be a Muslim now. There's no choice. It's definite. Whether my psychology agrees with it or not, my mind says you have to be a Muslim. Your psychology could follow.
Don't think about the news, don't think about propaganda, don't think about politics, don't think about consequences, yeah, of accepting Islam. Think about what is truth and what is falsehood.
Many converts feel that it is this secular lifestyle that creates misery in Western societies, and more often than not, this lifestyle drives people to perpetrate inhumane crimes that have plagued the West. The ills of this society are numerous in nature and can range from rape, murder, paedophilia and suicide to pornography, gambling, robbery and theft. For example, recent UK Home Office statistics suggest that 80,000 women are involved in prostitution. Between 1989 and 1995, some 4,000 children were cautioned for offences related to prostitution. Organisations that help the survivors of childhood sexual abuse estimate that this is very common in the United Kingdom. If we widen the scope to the treatment of women and children by society, we see that problems are in fact widespread and not sporadic and isolated. In any given day in the United Kingdom,